The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Welcome to our view on public safety. Once again, my name is Richard Aguiar. I am the Chief of Special Services and the Director of Fall River Emergency Management. Today I have two young gentlemen with me, Ryan Rivard and Ronald Delong. They are part of the restoration company, Restore Now. So when I go to fires, which I attend many fires, there's always a process after the fire. If you have a major flooding in a home, or fire. What is your job, Ryan? What do you actually, the service that you render to the customer?
So at Restore Now, we deal with insurance restoration claims. So after a fire, water, loss, there are certain steps and procedures you have to follow in dealing with an insurance claim loss. So we work on behalf of the homeowners and advocating with them for the insurance company to stop putting accurate numbers together to return their home back to its pre-loss condition.
So I see here on your notes, water loss. I experienced that firsthand. If we have a fire on the third floor, the first floor, second floor is totally not destroyed by fire, but water. And Ronald, just talk to me about that, the water aspect of all this as well.
Yeah, so we, again, we work for the client themselves, not necessarily the insurance company. When a home is infected, not just from water from the fire itself, but we also deal with water from pipe bursts. In the cold winter months, a lot of times if people are out of town, they'll turn the heat down because they're not using it. It can lead to a freeze up, which then ultimately leads to a water loss. So we deal with water losses in a number of different ways. In the sense of a fire, we come in once the scene has been released. We help assess the water damage that's been as a result of putting the fire out for safety purposes. We then Matterport, which is a 3D image camera that allows us to do virtual walkthroughs after the fact and capture things in real time, in which we supply to the insurance companies to support the damage that's there. We also work alongside and try and partner with some mitigation companies in regards to getting the customers taken care of as quickly as possible.
So, once again, when I'm dealing with fires, we have a bunch of guys that respond. They're bonnet companies, they're insurance adjusters, and all this stuff. You don't play any of those roles that I can think of, but why is it important for them to call you guys after a fire? Now, how do you actually would get called? Let's put it this way. How would you get called? Either Ryan or you.
So a lot of it is from our past relationships working with previous clients, previous homeowners. We've had a lot of repeat business from people that we've worked with in the past. And once someone has gone through this process, they fully kind of understand like how many steps and procedures it takes to move forward in the process. As an example, say there's a fire, and you guys are on site at a fire scene. Once you guys have smothered the fire is out, what are the next steps? It's boarding and securing the building. So that way you don't have to worry about any kind of weather elements coming in, unwanted guests coming into the building. So we can help facilitate in regards to getting the building properly secured from the weather elements. Next step is then speaking with us, because then we can coordinate on the next steps of what needs to happen. If it's in the wintertime, getting the water lines winterized, that way you don't have to worry about any additional damage from broken water lines. Is the electricity at risk? Do we have to get temp power set up? Getting a mitigation company in there to remove all the wet affected material. Before that can even happen, the state of Massachusetts requires us to get everything tested for lead and asbestos. We do have to provide that documentation to the town when applying for certain permits. There are demo permits and the reconstruction permit as well through that process.
So, so the insurance company the people should deal with you through the insurance company.
Yes.
And can they go directly to you, not the insurance company, or do you deal with the insurance company for them as well?
So a homeowner has every right to choose whoever they would prefer to have perform the work to their home. There are certain companies that an insurance carrier can recommend, but we work on behalf of the homeowners, advocating for them. There are certain times an adjuster may miss something from the insurance carrier, and we advocate, well, hey, you may have missed this other room, or this hardwood floor is continuous and you have to account for this additional work in order to return the property back to its pre-loss condition. So we advocate on behalf of the homeowner towards the insurance company and making sure that the scope of work is accurate for them.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, we like to be involved as early as possible. We are involved in board ups. So as Ryan said, securing the building for a number of different reasons. Getting our plumber out there to winterize if needed, cutting the electricity if that's an issue as well, or adding temp power if that's necessary to run particular equipment. But we like to get involved as early as possible. And as he said, the customers are the ones that hire us, not the insurance company, but we do have years of experience within the insurance restoration world, so we understand how to navigate through that system very accurately.
Yeah, because I see also here on your notes about taking photos, videos. Is that for the homeowner, or is that for you guys to document everything?
That's for everyone in general. So that would be for documentation for the homeowner. It's documentation for us that we're being accurate, and also providing that to the insurance carrier so they can see the extent of the damage and the loss. One of the common mistakes that homeowners will tend to do is not notify the insurance company. There is a statute of limitation in an insurance claim process. Some people will wait too long, or they're scared like, oh, if I contact my insurance carrier, my rates may go up. So that's always one of the fears. So we kind of help navigate that for the homeowners and the proper steps needed to take.
But if they have insurance, why would they not want to call the insurance company? Because they have to restore their property.
Some people are worried about their deductibles and their rates going up.
Okay, so let's talk about deductibles, and let's talk about that stuff. We spoke one time about a lot of people don't have enough insurance on their homes and their property. So if they do have a loss, they cannot mitigate the problem because the insurance company does not cover everything, or you have to be careful because the insurance company will cut this out, cut that out. This is where you guys come in to make sure that doesn't happen, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're again, part of my background is not just as a general contractor, but I also worked in the insurance industry for well over a decade. So navigating through the insurance world and understanding what folks are entitled to is one of the things that we lead the industry in. And making sure that they know what they're entitled to and that they're getting that and advocating for that is our priority number one.
Mm-hmm. So 2-year statute of limitation, now what does that mean?
So you have 2 years from the date of the loss to either file a claim, pursue recoverable depreciation. If you have gone through a claim process, there are a number of different notification processes within the industry to notify your carrier of a loss. As Ryan said, there are a number of different reasons for whatever it may be for a particular homeowner on why they do or don't want to file a claim. Sometimes they'll contact us just to see what they have available to them and whether or not it's worth pursuing a claim. Some folks will look at a loss and say, well, I've got a really high deductible. I don't know whether the damage is well over that or if it's close to that, whether it's worth pursuing or not. We can help them through that process as well.
So what if someone has a property, a home, that's underinsured, and they have a catastrophic loss in their home? How does that happen? What happens? How do they get their home back to where it was, or they do or they don't?
Do you want to take that, or that? I mean, that's a difficult one because if they're underinsured, that goes back to the agency itself, as well as whoever wrote the policy. They should be revisiting whether the home is insured accurately. Massachusetts is a direct right state, excuse me. So it's a difficult process, but that would come back to the agency itself or the carrier that wrote the policy on whether or not it's properly insured. I currently have a loss in which the gentleman has a 1% deductible. So the 1% deductible is 1% of the policy limit on the dwelling. However, in this loss, in reaching an agreement with the adjuster, in looking at the deductible, I realized that with the state of this home, that the deductible's probably not right, or the policy's not right. So I did encourage him to reach out to his carrier, as well as his agency, in making sure that they revisit his limits.
So if a homeowner has a fire and they call Restore Now, you guys will handle it from the time you walk into the door, plumbing, electrical, roofing. You will coordinate all those contractors to come in under your umbrella, correct?
Correct. So we will take charge from the project from beginning to end, from being on site day one, whether we need to coordinate the board up or facilitating the mitigation services, dealing with the carrier, writing an accurate scope of work, negotiations with the carrier, going through that process, getting that approval, working with the homeowner on going through their selection process, walking through that steps and process from cabinets to paint to flooring decisions. We're going into contract. We take care of all the permitting. We take care of all the scheduling from the electrical, the plumbing, the framing, right to the finish until the project is done, and we're handing them the keys back over to the house.
Now, how about you have here hidden damages? Now, what would that consist of, hidden damages?
So hidden damages can result in a number of different things. You could have had a slow plumbing leak that happened over time that was exposed once you had a major catastrophe at your home, like you said, a fire. You guys pull walls down to make sure that there's no fire behind the walls, and that could expose hidden rot, insulation that's affected, and so forth, siding, sheathing, those types of things. Those are all hidden things. Hidden things are things that you can't see. So ultimately, if there's drywall that's there, but you don't see that the studs are all rotted, that would be considered hidden damage. You pull siding back and you realize that the backing to the siding is affected by rot, which then goes into the studs and all of that. Those would all be considered hidden damages.
Pulling back flooring. Sometimes in some houses there's multiple layers of flooring. There's glue down, there's mastic, etc. So when, say it is a fire and there's a bunch of debris on the floor, once that debris is removed and we know we have to remove the floor, there could be 3-4 layers of flooring there. That all has to get tested, the mastic itself, because that can come hot for asbestos, and that has to get properly abated. So
I've been to different fires and stuff, and we pulled on a ceiling, for an example, or the firefighters pulled on a ceiling. And when they pulled on the ceiling, the roof joists, the sheetrock, the paneling, it's already scored from fire that they had there maybe many years ago. That's hidden damages. Now, if they have a recurring fire, would that be something that you guys would cover as well with the insurance company, or they would not cover that because it was already an existing situation?
Yeah, so that would be something that would be, it depends on the extent. And we do run into things that have been previously encapsulated.
Yeah, that's...
that does happen, and that is a protective way to, keep things at bay. That would still, if it's affected by the new loss, that would still be something that would be covered. Okay. Under an insurance policy or an insurance loss, and something that we would pursue in that repair process.
Dealing with the mortgage companies, I see that on the list as well. So now, all these questions that people are going to be saying, mortgage company, what's that about? Explain that.
So when there's a loss and there's still a mortgage on the home, so we can come to an agreement with the insurance company for an agreed dollar figure to perform the repairs. When the carrier will issue the check, typically in most cases they'll issue a 2- or 3-party check. So it'll have the homeowner's name on it, but it'll also have the mortgage company on it, and it may have a third party in that as well too. So the homeowners would have to endorse that check. Say it's a check for like $100,000. That check gets sent to the mortgage company, and then the mortgage company will send someone, a representative from their company, to go out and assess, okay, out of that $100,000, they may only release $25,000 out of that to start getting the project going. During the process, you need to be in constant contact with the mortgage company to schedule inspections, so that way they'll release additional funds out of that initial amount issued by the insurance carrier.
So if a homeowner calls you guys, let's say they have a flood in their home or a fire, but let's talk about water damage, because that could be significant as well. They don't pay you direct. You collect off the insurance company. They don't have, you don't deal with them with money at all, right? The homeowner? How does that work?
It kind of depends on the situation. So I mean, we definitely, if we are facilitating and coordinating the mitigation portion of that, there's a couple of ways the insurance carrier will want to issue payment out. They may issue payment directly out to the homeowner, to the agreed price with the mitigation company, and they put the responsibility on the homeowner to pay the mitigation company. Other cases, the insurance carrier may just issue payment directly to the mitigation company itself for whatever the agreed price is. That's kind of like phase one of an insurance claim process, is the mitigation portion. Once the area has been cleaned, mitigated, it's ready for phase two, which is the repair phase of that. That typically, they will always typically issue the check directly to the homeowner for the agreed amount. Now, whether that check has the mortgage company or not on it, it just kind of depends. If there's a mortgage or if there's not a mortgage on it, they're going to issue payment directly to the homeowner.
Just to add to that, there are specific insurance companies that, based on direction to pays, which is a document that we have customers sign, within that document it's also a permit authorization. Within those documents, some carriers with a signed contract will pay us directly based on the stages. We have to, just like with the mortgage company, update them in regards to what stages we're at and what those payment segments are. They might not match our contract payment schedule per dollar. They may release it in specific increments that they choose, but we can get payments directly from insurance companies in that sense, which does make it a little bit easier on some customers. And that's, again, as Ryan said, that's some companies that will do that, but not all. There's only a handful of companies that will actually pay the contractor directly based on you proving that the work was not only done, but the costs were incurred.
So what's your relationship with insurance and justice? I see a lot of those guys floating around at fires as well, with their pads and sign this, sign that, and I'm always reluctant about them walking around all over the place.
So directly with insurance carriers, there's a difference between an insurance carrier and I think what you're referring to is a public adjuster.
Public adjuster.
So a public adjuster works also on behalf of the homeowner itself, but they're just dealing with the insurance portion of it. So if there's contents damage, they're navigating and documenting everything to submit to the insurance carrier. They collect a fee off the total price of whatever they settle the claim at, but they're not doing anything in regards to repairs, coordinating, scheduling, or anything in regards to that. Their sole focus is mostly on the number and doing that portion of the work.
Yeah. So would you work with them and communicate with them as well, or once they do their thing, you'll do your thing and that's it?
Yeah, we've been brought in numerous times by public adjusters, independent adjusters, and also insurance carriers to help navigate certain situations as far as like consulting, or maybe there was just such a big difference between the carrier and that contractor or that PA. Both Ronald and I have been called in as a third party to come in and mitigate and kind of look at it from a fresh lens and provide our expertise and our numbers and how we would feel if we were performing the work. We would submit a proposal based off performing the work, what we would need to do to perform that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add to that. Our goal should be in common with everyone that's involved in a loss, and that's to keep the customer, first and foremost, have them in their best interest in mind and putting them back to where they were pre-loss condition. A lot of these situations, especially when you talk about fires, these folks are in distress. They're in a really tough situation that they didn't ask to be in. And I think everyone that's involved should keep all of that in mind and put them in the forefront for advocating to get them back to the way they were prior to the loss having occurred. And in some situations, even better than they were prior to the loss. A home needed repairs before the loss, and now they're in a situation to do things that they may have wanted to do prior to the loss. We deal with a lot of folks that, have had a lot of things in mind that they've wanted to do, and they've kind of put money aside, and now they have a situation that they're in, that they were forced into, don't want to be into, but we try and make that a better situation by helping them also achieve goals that they may have had set for years leading into this tragic situation.
So part of my job at a fire is I'll speak to the displaced family or the homeowner, and I recommend, listen, you need to get this, you need to get that, okay? And they telling me they're going to call their own insurance company, and they're going to deal with their insurance company direct. Of course, I have to stay neutral. I can't recommend anyone, which I don't. But from what I can hear from you guys, that's a bad idea because you're there to help them. And most people that I also talk to, they always feel that the insurance company is going to try to screw them or cut them out of what they should be getting and stuff like that. When I have somebody like you guys come in, you're going to make sure that doesn't happen because you're going to work with the customer. You're going to give them the best product that you can give them for what they have on the insurance on their home, correct?
Yeah, I will add something to that with a vehicle strike. Let's use that for example. A lot of people will say, well, I don't want to file the claim on my own policy because I don't want it to come into my history. They'll look to file it against the vehicle insurance company. I would never advise against that, or for that, excuse me. I would always file with your own insurance company in that particular loss. They can apply depreciation, the vehicle's insurance company, in which you wouldn't be entitled to recover because it's not your insurance company. Your insurance company should have your best interest always in mind. The automobile insurance company can apply things that you won't get back. So ultimately you're doing the work for less than what the actual value to get it done would be.
So they're kind of hoping you just accept whatever they give you for a value in that check, and you just get the repairs done and not knowing that there is recoverable depreciation in some situations. So a lot of people don't seem to not understand depreciation and holdback in regards to that. So there's certain steps that you have to follow in order to recover that. So say, I'll go back to using the $100,000 example, that is the agreed price. Out of that $100,000, maybe $20,000 of that is being held back by the insurance company until you can prove that all the funds have been spent on the project towards the repairs. So there's certain steps that we have to follow in order to prove that to the insurance company and show them completion photos. Once that is done, then the carrier can start the process in releasing those additional funds out. So there are certain steps. A lot of times people tend, if they are a DIYer or something like that, they will just like, oh, I can do the repairs myself, and they'll do it for less. Well, then they're not entitled to that depreciation because they didn't use a licensed contractor.
The other thing I run across constantly is if we have a fire multifamily home, 3 family, 6 family, and the tenant loses everything. So right away they say, well, the landlord's responsible for my contents. I says, no, they're not. I said, you have to have tenant insurance. And people don't realize for cheap money how important tenant insurance is. Once again, even if you're on a lower floor and the fire's on the top floor and you have water damage, that stuff is gone. The insurance company will take care of that for you if you have insurance. And everybody has a conception of, well, it's the landlord's problem. Well, it's not the landlord's problem. The landlord has insurance for his property, the entire property. You have to have insurance for your apartment. You guys run across that stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with you. I would always advocate, and honestly, if you own a building and you rent it out, you should be suggesting to those tenants, and a lot of them do, that they should have tenant insurance that covers their personal property. The limit could be as low as $25,000, but that may cover everything that you have in your apartment. You can increase those limits based on whatever that payment may be. But in that particular situation, like you said, when we're talking about low money, it's maybe a couple $100 for the year.
Yeah, and
to cover all of your personal property that if you lose, you can't come back from.
Yeah,
No,
so like going back to where you're saying like some people will think that the contents is getting covered under the property's insurance. The easiest way how I can explain, if you take a house and you flip it upside down, everything that falls loose, that would fall out of the house, would fall under your contents coverage. So in an insurance policies, there's coverage A, B, C, and D. Coverage A is covering the structure of the house. Coverage B is your contents, and everything that would fall out, all your contents fall into that coverage. So in regards to renter's insurance, they need to have that. I strongly recommend that.
And I see it all the time, particularly when they have children involved and the kids lose everything, their clothing, the bedroom, and not just to fire, but to water damage, because water damage is just as bad as fire damage.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You even, in some cases, more so. Because at least a fire you can rebuild. When that stuff you can't, you got to replace. And I see like these, teenage age kids, and they lost everything, and they're all crying and everything else. And I was saying to myself, just a simple $200 a year.
Yep.
They could have everything back. It's like, it boggles my mind why people don't look into that. And when I got married many years ago, 40-something years ago, when I rented my first apartment, the condition was we had to have insurance to be able to live there.
Yep.
And in which that was part of the agreement, and we did. We had to have I think back then it probably $80, $60 as whatever it was back in those days. But I knew about this right from the get-go. And I think it's important that if you're going to have insurance, a lot of these commercial companies now coming in, renting apartments, they're emphasizing you have to have insurance or you can't live here. And it's important. I think people are being educated on that now, because back in the day, people were not educated to that. And I always felt that people, here's the rent. I got to pay another $100, $200 to insure my property because rents are going up, and that's another burden on them. But they don't realize that it's going to save everything that they have. But
It even helps if they are displaced, or say there was a fire upstairs, but that smoke and soot didn't directly affect their unit, but it's in their clothing. Their insurance will help cover to get that going to a textile cleaner to properly clean that, so that smoke smell is removed from the clothing. So.
Yeah, and if something's non-salvageable from that particular loss, whether they can't get the smoke smell out of something, or whether it's been directly affected from water, debris, category changing of water when it goes through a number of different floorings and so forth, that coverage would be there for them to tap into to replace anything that was affected.
So I know you're licensed and certified. So how do you guys come to the point where you get a license?
So both Ronald and I have our CSL licenses, which is an unrestricted contractor's license, so we can both pull permits for residential and commercial properties.
We're also licensed in Rhode Island as well as Massachusetts.
Yep.
So we do both work in both states as well and cover a large territory.
So I hope this helped everyone out there about restoration and insurance. This company, there's a lot of them out there. I just happen to choose this company to come and speak to you. I think it's a good idea. If you have a situation, please contact someone like them. Not necessarily Restore Now, but from what I can see here, they're a great, reputable company. And I hope you enjoyed the show. See you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.